Hey, Digit PDX here. I wanted to address something that I saw recently on Facebook. There was a post and there's some kind of a proposal going through the Army right now about doing away with the whole merit badge system that they've had active since almost forever. I would say probably since the 1950s, with badges and ribbons such as the EIB, CIB, CAB, Ranger Special Forces tabs, Sapper tabs, all that kind of a stuff. And they say they want to be more like the Marine Corps, where everybody's supposedly equal. Okay, well, here's a reality check, and I'm going to qualify my opinion. Some of you might recognize the glasses. I did time in both the Army and the Marine Corps. I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years active duty. I was in the Army National Guard for around 10 years, actually over 10 years, almost 15 years. And I got to see with the Army, I got to see how the active duty Army did things, because we did deployments to, like active duty overseas stuff. Although I personally didn't do the wartime deployments, in country during the Balkan stuff, we went to what they called backfill positions in Germany, and I got to see how day to day Army with not really truly peacetime Army, because they had a pretty high tempo of deployments, but basically how things would work with that. And with the Army, I was a combat engineer. In the Marine Corps, I had a couple of different OSs. It was part of the reasons I got out of the Marine Corps was there's several subcultures within the military which go according to rank, MOS, unit, things like that. And there's always a figuring of the pecking order. Okay, there's always a figure. Anal retentive. Who gets to shit on who and why? And a lot of it has to do with, the respect issues, what respect somebody feels they rate. And I'm going to say right now, a lot of people go into that with some maturity issues, and they get socialized in military culture according to the peer groups that they were at during certain critical phases of their personal development. So a lot of people are saying that this whole generic Marine thing, everybody's a Marine, there's a lot of equality with that. I got to call bullshit. Okay, I got to call bullshit. First of all, my original enlistment, I did what they called an open enlistment, which had a higher bonus, and then you would probably get sent to the grunts. A lot of people didn't want to do that. They all wanted the Marine Corps thing, but they really didn't want to do the super hard shit. They just kind of wanted to say, tell all the boot camp stories, do all the boot camp shit. But when it came to the really big hardcore shit, why fuck around with it when you're already getting all the recognition for being a Marine? And for me, I had originally gone and did an initial tryout and interview process with 20th Special Forces in Brooksville, Florida, and then this other group that was out of MacDill Air Force Base, later to become known as SOCOM. And the people at SOCOM were basically very similar to the 20th Special Forces group. I was really shopping special operations and CIA and that sort of stuff, trying to figure out where I could get into, the real shit. And in that, it became really obvious to me that there are, those little badges and ranks and little ways people had recognition on this type of stuff. With the CIA, it's like really ambiguous, is little souvenirs from certain things that you might get somewhere. With Army people, it was really straight up and obvious. With the Marine Corps, at the special operations level, they also decided to adopt straight up and obvious stuff, such as the gold jump wings and the bubble. The bubble being a pin that went down the chest that signified somebody had been through basically the same dive school the Navy SEALs went through. And then the jump wings was a couple of different types. One for doing airborne with the Army, and then once you did like 5 or 10 jumps with the Marine Corps, you got a gold jump wing to signify that you rated the actual Marine Corps jump wings. And so even in Marine Corps Special Operations, you eventually got something like that. And there was a lot of talk of Marine grunts or Force Recon or somebody getting a tan beret, getting a different hat. Now, Commandant of the Marine Corps shot that one down. He was like, no, everybody's going to roll the sleeves up the same way, and they're going to have the same hats. Although there was another group that some people considered elite, some people didn't. They had like a little red patch on their stuff, and these guys are kind of like first to the beach type of assault brigade type guys that would. They're kind of like a big traffic director type thing. I forget what they call it, shore party or something like that. But the thing is, within that elite stuff, rank isn't the thing. It's your other achievements. Within the rest of the military, the main thing is rank. And people would go through everything they could to get rank, and then go through the minimum stuff to get competent in an actual job. And a lot of times you're not going to figure it out. You're not going to know that this person who has rank, who wants to play bossy boss, is actually really fucking ignorant to the job that's at hand. Okay, all they did was all this stuff to get promoted, and they didn't really become highly competent at any particular job. And you're never going to know that, and because of their rank, you're not going to win that argument with them. Okay? When I was in the Marine Corps, I went to grunt school after boot camp. After I had a different MOS, I had a maintenance-related MOS, and this was, I'll back up a little bit. Okay, so the people at SOCOM were not taking a Marine Corps contingent. You had to be pretty much a Ranger, then Special Forces. Then from Special Forces, you get loaned over to SOCOM, and then there was some Air Force units that did this too, and the issue with those was that you could get trapped into the process with this and get sidetracked somewhere else because there was wait lists for everything. So the waiting list for Special Forces was pretty long, and then there was a wait list for the SOCOM stuff, which was another whole wait list. And it didn't matter how good you are or what you got, it was a question, would they pick you for? And then there was the Navy SEAL thing. And I went to this pre-training thing where they were like teenagers and wannabes. This guy Don Shipley does it now, but back in the 80s there was some other people doing it. And it's like you sit in a surf and eat MREs, and I'm like, what the fuck do I sit in a surf and eat MREs? The water's cold, I got sand all over me. This isn't quite where I want to be. And I mean, it's a reality. Okay, and my uncle had gone out for this thing, and it's like, after so many laps in a pool, and he goes, I like swimming, but not that much swimming. And I was like, good for them, but this isn't where I want to be. And 20 Special Forces, I go training with them, and then have a talk with the unit first sergeant, and, he's a rough and tough old Vietnam vet, because this is in the 80s. And he's like, well, boy, you're still on your mama's tit. You're fresh out of home, blah, 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 blah. Go in the Marine Corps for a while, then come back and talk to us. And it turned out that some of those people didn't like me to begin with, whatever. It is what it is, okay? You got to be able to get along with the people. And back then, I was this young, skinny dude. I really didn't know that much. I knew what I read in Soldier of Fortune magazine and what I heard in war stories from people. That's all the information that was available. There was no internet. So if, you're getting lied to in a lot of these things, you're going to come off as ignorant because you don't have good information. But one of the things they were just starting is this thing that was later to become the 18X program. And it was never really clear how you got into that. I mean, it wasn't like recruiters didn't really want to talk about that. They want to talk about the quotas they want to fill. And again, there's all these wait lists for Special Forces. So I went open contract Marine Corps. They did what they wanted, and it turned out that there was some issues with the physical. One, I didn't have perfect vision. Two, I didn't have good enough hearing for some of this stuff. And I was like, okay, well, what can I do? What can I accomplish? And so they put me in another job. They said they'd figured out when I was in boot camp. And that was when I started figuring out the status isn't what they say it is. And it's like, this one former Army Airborne guy, 82nd Airborne guy, he was telling me, oh, I'm going in this, I'm going to be recon, I'm this. And he started talking shit at me. And we're all in boot camp, okay? There's got to be a reason he went from being a specialist to Marine pre-FC and didn't go Ranger. There's some reason he didn't do that. And so I jumped him. He's talking shit, I jumped him. he goes fucking wanting to give me an Article 15 for it, and I'm like, well, here's your fucking problem. You take a hit to PFC when you come from the Army to the Marine Corps. I was in as a PFC or E2, E3. I had some kind of thing because I had enough college credits to get like the higher rank. I was like, fuck this. You talk shit. Of course I jumped in. Well, it goes back and forth to the drill instructor, the senior drill instructor, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna write this thing off, keep you two away from each other. And lo and behold, because he wanted to turn this into a criminal complaint when he was the one that started it and was talking shit, they actually made him a cook. They made sure he was never going to see recon or grunts or any of that kind of stuff. Now, maybe he could get out of that because the way the Marine Corps works is anybody can sign up for recon if you can go through their courses and their indoctrination and all that. But if you don't already have a grunt MOS, you have to go to grunt school. So I went from a technical MOS. I've been in the air wing for about a year and a half-ish or so. And then I transferred to Camp Pendleton, and then I was finally able to get my name in, and nobody else wanted to go to grunt school. And so the unit was having quotas for grunt school, but in a Marine Corps, there's no wait list for it because there's no badge, there's no ribbon. You don't get anything out of it. Why go and do a bunch of hard shit that you're not going to get recognized for? Well, I had pride issues, and I had ambitions of getting into the special operations of one kind or another, and that was a requirement. So I went and I did it. And it was hard. Okay, he treated me like shit, and it was fucking hard. Somebody comes out of Marine Corps grunt school and says, oh, that's easy. Fuck you. It was hard for me. And I get out of that. I go back to a motor transport unit, and I get on a wait list for the recon tryouts. Well, I ran into some issues, and again, it was like, this hearing and eyesight thing started to come up. And so they made me a weapons instructor for like rear echelon people, like trucks and mechanics, drivers, mechanics, typewriter people, all that. I was like a weapons instructor. So I'll be on the range, and I didn't have sufficient rank to be put in charge, so I was like the instructor, okay? But I wasn't the guy in charge. Well, the guy in charge never went to the MOS school for the shit that we're working on, and he starts saying something to counter what I'm saying, and I'm like, no, that's not the way it is. And we're having to argue, and of course I'm instantly wrong because I'm like this smart ass lance corporal versus a staff sergeant. And the thing is, he had made his rank. I guess in some MOS they had a low ass cutting score, so it's not like our cutting scores are wildly different. And even though I had the grunt qualification, my promotions were based on the technical MOS that had the high cutting score. So it's like no-win situation. I get to do all the hard shit and not get the rewards for it. And that, it was fucked up. And that's one of the reasons I always had a lot more respect for the Army, because they'll give you a merit badge that you earn. Okay, if you go and you earn a merit badge, you get it. At least you got something out of this thing. In the Marine Corps, you can go do a bunch of extra hard shit and all this, and you don't get nothing out of it. Okay, they'll still piss on you. I had this guy telling me that, you got to put the safety on the M60 before you cock it. I'm like, okay, well, if the bolt's forward, you can't put it on safe. You have to cock it before that, and then you put the belt in. And he's like, well, no, you got to have it on safe and the bolt forward before you open the feed tray, blah, blah. I'm like, no, it won't fucking work this way. It's not gonna, so this guy's telling me to do something the way this mechanical device doesn't work, and it's like, look at my collar. Always happens that way. And you got to be able to recognize expertise, you got to be able to recognize achievement, and let the guy wear his merit badge. If a guy earns it, let him have it. And we saw this when I was in the Army later on. I got out of the Marine Corps, and it was largely over the promotion issue, the not being recognized for shit that I did, getting stepped on. I got sick of it. You get out of that, you go in the Army, there's different issues, but at least they do a better job of recognizing people for what they achieve. In the National Guard, I was in particularly good units where, if I'm getting held back on my promotions, but we had a mid-40s Vietnam vet who is a squad leader, it's like, I'm not going to argue about that. This guy's obviously, more experienced, more competent. He's really been around, and I'm not going to argue with that. It's when I'm the 22-year-old Lance Corporal who's been through a shitload of extra training, and a 25-year-old staff sergeant's like trying to tell me how the world works like I'm some dumb little child, and he had never even been through the special training. He just went straight to his promotion stuff. And kind of wheedled into different MOS that had a low cutting score and had kissed up at some other unit, did well. They have this thing, it's kind of like a game show called merit promotions. And what it really is, it's like a Trivial Pursuit game show. You go up there, you dress up your fucking uniform, and you go out and you answer all these trivial game show questions, and if you win the game show, you get a promotion. Okay, great, good job. But it doesn't mean you're better than the people who actually went through the actual training course to become competent in a particular thing. And if you're going to take that away from the Army, I think you're taking away from the quality of units, the quality of training, and a lot of the motivation that soldiers are going to have to go and do extra training, to take extra deployments, to earn these achievements. And you need to let people earn their achievements. The military is a meritocracy for a reason. And when you devalue all achievements other than, rank, then you're really devaluing the quality of the military that you're going to have.